Welcome back to Keepin the Comic, and we're picking back up here on issue number 2 of Predator versus Black Panther, and the Predator has found all the Vibranium. Now, this story here picks up back on what happened after the Predator finally got into Wakanda, where we saw T'Challa falling into some muddy water and Shuri's plane crashed into the Wakandan border. So we're picking up here on the aftermath of that. Now, back in Wakanda here, outside of Burn and Zana, Okoye and Dora Milaje are in watch mode right now because they're looking out for danger, which they don't necessarily know exactly who that is yet. Okoye remembered the last words from T'Challa before comms went down, and it was that the Dora needed to come to him because someone or something had entered Wakanda. Now, Okoye, using her skills here, she can sense that things are off based on her surroundings. She sees the snake curling around the branch here. She hears the high-pitched chirrup from the frog and the burbling methane in the water, as she says, and more. Now, what really catches her attention here is the lack of birds that are in the sky. Now, behind her, one of the Dora, they get yanked up. And then Okoye later realizes that Nala, I'm not talking about the one from the Lion King here, that she's missing and that they're looking for her in the water. Now, Okoye, she says, yo, stay alert. Let's cluster together back to back because she senses something is there with them right now. And as soon as Okoye looks up, there is a bunch of blood spatter that just falls directly on every single one of them that are there. And then she tells them in haste, she's like, listen, turn your spears up so that they could emit some electrical discharge from their spears to fire at whatever it was that was above them. Now, as they do that, one of the Yatja jumps down with Adora's head in his hand, by the way. Like, whoa, my goodness. Now, Okoye charges right at him, right? And then she stabs him directly in the stomach. And then we start to see some green blood here spewing out of him. Now, Okoye says, listen, whatever this thing is, there is more of them. And she was not wrong because they start firing lasers at the Dora Milaje, piercing right through the skin of one of them. Now, the only thing that Okoye could tell them at this point was run, as more lasers just keep on firing at them. Now, back in the swamp ground here, remember we talked about T'Challa, not too far from where the Doras are right now. Now, from the last issue, as I mentioned, T'Challa had fallen into some muddy water here after being knocked out of a tree by some plasma blasts from one of the Yatja, or a few of the Yatjas. Now, he is finally awake after suffering from like a head injury or two, to be real. The last thing that he remembered here is reaching out to Okoye for some help before comms went down. So he rushes over to where she could be and then finds a fallen Dora, which was Nala, and the fallen Yatja that the rest of the Dora Milaje had taken down. Now, the one good thing right now is that he finally has a face for his enemy, and then he hears another scream. So then he rushes over to it, and then he sees Okoye tied up to a tree with a wire mesh. Now, the mesh was starting to tighten on her body as well, slowly cutting through her flesh. So T'Challa, he emits an electrical discharge here from his claws, which then severs the mesh over Okoye. Now, one thing T'Challa has now realized from these past two sightings here is that although he doesn't recognize the Yatja's tech, he now knows that they bleed based on what he saw, of course, with the other Yatja, and that the Vibranium that he has is stronger than the tech that they have. So he asks Okoye, like, where are they? And he's referring to the Yatja. And then Okoye responds, they are nowhere, my king, but they are everywhere, as we see one cloaked looking right at them. Now, back at the Wakandan border, we catch up with Shuri and then the Majikina. Now, in the last issue, when they tried to come back into Wakanda, one of the Yatja closed the border, so then her ship crashed directly into it and then fell down. Now, Shuri remembers someone on comms was crying out for help when they were trying to originally leave Wakanda, which was why she turned back. Now, Shuri tries to access the coding, but realizes that something is preventing her from being able to do so, which is something that she doesn't even recognize. She doesn't even recognize what the coding is. Now, unfortunately for her, when she was trying to hack back into the system, one of the Yatjas recognized this attempt, and now one of their scouts was sent to go investigate. Now, in the meantime, just like how we did in the last issue here, Majikina decided to try and look into the water to see what stories they could show based on their current predicament. So when he looks in, it's not a pleasant sight at all. He tells Shuri, that he sees the death of Wakanda. Now, while she tries to get more answers from Majikina, one of the Yautja snatches her up from the inside of the border and then takes her away. And then when we jump back inside of Wakanda, now T'Challa is able to sense one of the Yautjas who is around him using that cloaking technology while he's staring into a reflection of the wind-blurred water. So he was able to grab him and then swing him and throw him all the way down into the water that was below. Now the Yautja gets up, draws his sword, and then tries to go after T'Challa. But instead, he gets taken out by Mother Nature when a crocodile jumps out of the water and then bites him. So then to finish him off, Black Panther fires something at him to help the croc out just a little bit here. So now him and Okoye, they head off to go find whoever else might still be able to help out in this fight. But unknown to them, this entire time, the leader of the Yautja group, the main cog here that we met in the very first issue, was watching them the entire time, planning out his next move. Because Black Panther had taken out one of his clan and survived the plasma blast, now he sees them as worthy prey. In addition to that, he now has his own vibranium spare from one of them that had dropped, one of the Dora Milaje that had dropped their spare behind. Now, in that moment, he gets summoned by his clan, requesting his immediate presence. Now, the reason why is because they had found the Great Mound. And for a moment, he had forgotten what his whole quest was about, which was to get the vibranium because he had saw what T'Challa was doing. So when he goes to meet his clan again, he comes to the mountain, the mound, the belly, and he sees the God metal, as he calls it. The belly of the mountain is now full of the vibranium that he's been seeking for. So what he desires now to upgrade his tech, to upgrade his crew so that he can prove himself to be worthy again of his father, he has now found it here in the belly of this cave, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. Now listen, if you have not caught up here with the rest of the series, if you haven't caught up with the first issue of the series here, then check this out here right in this playlist over to the left. Also, check out our other videos here that are on the channel. Leave a like on this video before the algorithm. Subscribe for more here on the channel. And as always, guys, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic.